So you're playing D&D, and you as the DM and your players, you want more role play. You want to be a little more like Critical Role, or you got some people at the table who are a little more shy and you're looking for ways to empower them at the table so you can have those fun in-character conversations. Well, you've come to the right video because we're about to break down how to do that with some very, very helpful tips. I'm Scott Micklejohn. I play Valentine on the Wildcards in our ongoing D&D campaign here at Hexplorers. And of course, Kyle, who are you?
Kyle Bryden. I am the Dungeon Master to the Wildcards and to the realm of Visaria on Hexplorers. And yeah, we're going to talk about a little bit of creating some RP opportunities, specifically for some players who find it a little difficult, and especially to empower those who find it very, very easy.
On our video, or in our campaign currently, we got currently almost like 70 episodes on our channel. We'll link them down below. You can start watching those. But we got a mix of players, which is really, really fun. Kyle, you're a first-time DM. You never know because you're crushing it. I played D&D before, but we have people in our game who've never even played D&D once before. And so it was fun.
This is everyone's first, with the exception of you. This is everyone's first real attempt.
That's true. I think Allie played once before, but you're right. That's just pretty much it.
Yeah.
So we know how to bring newer people into the game, more experienced people into the game. But we wanted to start with the DM perspective first. And just so you know, at the end of this video, we're going to have a bunch of example scenarios DMs can use to throw at your players that are just organic, where these conversations will happen. But yeah, here's some tools and tips you can use to get more role play out of it. Kyle, as a DM, when I talk about those ways to empower your characters to start speaking, to be a little more in character, does anything come to mind as the first thing you like to focus on?
The first thing, like for empowering characters, actually, you know what? Before you even get to that, I do want to make sure that we have a disclaimer that our group is a high RP group. Yeah. We very much enjoy RP. Even those of us who are first timers came to really enjoy it. And it did take us a good amount of time to kind of get our feet under ourselves and get the ball rolling. You obviously have taken the kind of top spot. You also play a charismatic bard. It totally fits. They both marry together very well. Classic theater kid.
To convince an angel to resurrect our dead party member, our bard has to make a high DC speech.
Persuade your heart to try your hardest. And I think back to all the times Gord has saved us, and he would risk his soul being corrupted and tormented and torn into a million pieces to make sure that we still stand. Because that's the kind of guy Gord is. He's my best friend. And in this moment, we're still standing. But now it's our turn to stand for him.
Go ahead and roll a d20.
Wow. You clearly meant it.
I fucking love this game, Nat 20.
Okay. And some people who I expected would be more into the RP, and some people I didn't think would be an RP at all, crossed the streams. And
totally.
It was a very big surprise. But the big thing that I want to remind and empower other dungeon masters out there is that you're going to have a mix of people, and it's never going to be exactly what you expect. Mm-hmm. So let your players play for you and then play off of them. So if you have certain players who are really, really engaged and want to RP and are really flourishing backstories and trying to do voices and trying to do it all, give them the spotlight. And for those who are struggling, but seem to want to do it, give them the spotlight too, but don't make it so much a call out. Try and make it as organic for them as possible and give them the spotlight, but in their own way.
And we talked about that a lot. We say this in almost every one of our videos when we're having these conversations. We just want to make sure everyone's on the same page of what they want at the table. Check in with your players. Make sure, do you want more role play, or is this a little intimidating? And you just want to make sure that everyone's coming to the table and is getting what they want to have fun while playing Dungeons and Dragons. We've had a lot of practice at this, but even our table needs a gentle push every now and then. And I was thinking, Kyle, how much playing online has helped our role play, because it allows us to share the focus that much better. At our table, I feel like we did speak in character, but it's just in role play where I think it's really flourished.
It's interesting. It's one of the few areas where digital and online play has really changed the game for us, and for the better. As much as we missed it, there's a different energy in person. We talk about that in many other of our other chat videos. That energy in person is something that we will definitely miss, but the way it's kind of streamlined everything here, and given like you're almost more comfortable at home, right? So you're just engaging in one dimension almost. But like I just feel like when you're in this space, you can let your imagination flourish more and just kind of like go into that space a little better than when you are almost embarrassed with the people who are standing right in front of you. For those people who struggle, like I definitely personally struggle a lot more in social scenarios. However, when you put me here and I'm DMing, it's all gone. I can do whatever. I'll throw voices. I'll say random bullshit. I'll make jokes that whatever. Like,
I find as well, the chat really helps from a player point of view, because if there is a conversation you want to have, like, hey, where is that item? Are you carrying it or am I carrying it? You don't have to break the role play of a scenario, because you can just DM that to someone and they can be like, oh, that's on you. Remember you got it last game. And then boom, you can stay in character and keep that moving. And it's kept the like side table talk to a minimum in our group, because if you want to make a weird, I don't know, innuendo joke, or it's a funny player name joke, you can just do that in the chat and then it doesn't disrupt things at the table.
Another thing actually that kind of just sparked the idea of that we didn't even have this like kind of written and prepared though, is seeing the chat is a good jumping off point for other players to create RP moments in game. Asking a question in chat so that you don't disrupt the flow of the scene that's happening might spark then the person who the question's about, or just someone else to want to bring that up who maybe wouldn't have thought to otherwise. And it creates this like bigger conversation. Maybe it is just looking for an item, or maybe it's, do we know this? Do we learn this information?
Exactly,
like, stuff like that. And then it's like, oh, so now you're kind of inspiring those people who are maybe struggling or possibly not following along perfectly with the story to like, oh, maybe there's a little bit more here, and then maybe they can dig in a little bit more.
Totally. Yeah, we all forget things sometimes. Then you need a little push from a friend at the table to be like,
absolutely.
Oh no, remember you have this, or you know this person, you had that run-in with them and they hate your guts. And you can be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll talk to them. Kyle, you do a really good job with this. Speaking of like specific DM tips, and I think it's you check in with the players as you're moving the pacing along. So that is to say, before you jump scene or bring something else in, you ask us general questions like, anything else you guys want to do before that? And I love that. And I think you do a really, really good job of that.
It's a simple tool, one that I would recommend to DMs, like as much as you want to get to your next thing. And I've been there 1,000 times where I want to just kind of keep the pace moving forward. You want to give your players time to potentially have those moments, to have conversations, even just a quick like run through a checklist. Okay, do we have this, like just to give you guys that moment to have that RP or just mechanic like game conversation before moving forward. It's just a good way to like set the tone, make sure everyone's happy, move. And it doesn't have to be long. You don't have to sit there in awkward silence for 3 minutes. If no one pipes in 10 seconds, okay, great, on to the next thing. But just a quick check.
Yeah, you'll do a good job of that when like the velocity of a scene is happening. If it's a chase or if something's happening, you'll just quickly check in with someone. Like, so in our game, it could be like, okay, Valentine, you're doing that, but Brawley, what are you doing? Are you doing anything? And even if they're like, no, I'm following Valentine, it's like, great. And then you just keep it moving. But you just want to make sure that in that mind picture you're painting for the entire party and the group, that you can see what everyone's doing, and you're making sure people, if maybe they're too shy to bring up something, but they do have that opportunity to bring forward an offer or something that they want to say.
Yeah, so that to me is two different tools. There's a general ask of like, are you guys ready to move forward? Is there anything you guys want to do before we go through the door to the dungeon, before we leave and teleport to the next place? And then there's also the in-moment like action question of like, okay, things are suddenly progressing, things are happening, someone is off doing something. However, before we continue that interesting moment, let's have a quick check-in here with the other three who are doing whatever they're doing, and kind of emphasize that it's a quick check. Is there anything you guys quickly want to do before we jump back to the action? So we don't focus so heavily on one or two party members. We give the others a moment to shine without, almost like in a movie, like kind of not even a commercial break, but your A plot, B plot. You do a big focus on your A plot, but a real quick check in on the B and come back to the main action. I think that's a really important tool.
Your party enters out into the streets to see the outline of the moon grow red, and redder still as rain begins to pick up rapidly, turning from a light spitting of rain to a furious torrential storm. You look around you and in horror see the crowds and streets awash in blood. You look to your friends and yourselves and see a similar sight. Blood rains from the dark sky above. A crack of thunder rattles through the outer city, and the lightning once more draws your eyes skyward to a singular point. In the middle of the eclipsing moon, silhouetted by bolts of lightning, you see a humanoid figure. Tattered cloth ripples wildly amidst the storm, a long dark staff in one hand. Another flash and thunderous roar illuminates around this singular figure other flying spectres. Robes and cloaks similarly blown wild, 30, 40, more grim spectres of death leer down from the hundreds of feet above Hammerstock as the rain of blood continues to pour. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's almost that reaction shot, you know? Something big happens here. We cut to the close-up on this PC. What are they feeling? Or do they want to say any quick line? And cut back to the action. We're tracking it. We're following it. Speaking of that style, I think, Kyle, you do a good job with this with description too, by doing almost bite-sized description when you're starting to unravel something.
This is actually something I actively try and pull back on because I very much just want to let everything out. I want to just explain, both for pacing, just to keep things moving forward faster, but also just because I have all this stuff and I just just as a DM, you just want to say all the stuff because I want you to know all the stuff because I've also put time into all the stuff. It's a catch-22. But when you do try and keep your descriptions more concise but still evocative and still leaving just that little nugget of there's a little bit there that I'm gonna say more but I don't say more, so it forces you to begin investigation, begin kind of wanting to ask questions. As a DM, I always want you guys asking more questions, wanting to know more about whether the setting, the person you're interacting with, just more about the creatures, the encounter. How much more information can we get? Because that all involves skill checks, that all involves RP opportunities that can branch off conversations. It's all just jumping off points, and anything that comes from a player directed towards me as a place for you to jump off from for skills checks and other investigation, I want more of it. So this is a good jumping off point.
And I always think of those scenes when you're just discovering something, whether it's a new place or a new situation, a new character. You do a great job of cutting that focus to them. I picture it like a blank canvas sometimes, or that character shining the flashlight in like a dark room, and then their flashlight vision, what they're looking at, is what then you can move to next. So if they're like, I run my hands along like the stone, boom, you know that your description can move there, and you can bring in that like tactile, like feel, touch sense, and you can make it personal to them. It reminds you of this, and you can keep that moving from there. Speaking of bringing up like a different character, how about using NPCs to kind of encourage players to start talking?
NPCs are a wealth of creating RP. That's their whole purpose, is putting interesting characters in the world, or at least useful characters in the world that your players are going to want to interact with or need to interact with in some capacity. You want to try and engage your players and put characters in the world, fill the world with characters that both fit your world building and fit the scenario, but that your players are going to find interesting, or they're going to hate and give some strong emotional connection to. They're going to find them hot, like something to that emotion. Like, you're going to want to try and do something like that to engage with the players, to immediately kind of get that hook in. But then more so than that initial hook, you want to make them interesting NPCs so that the characters want to know more. And if you can, at the same time, throw in a little bit of either backstory or ulterior motives to the NPC that gives them a secondary or third level of depth, that if your characters are suspicious of them, there's something there to suss out. Or if it's a fun rug to pull out from behind under them when they get too invested and suddenly they'll switcheroo and they're not quite what you thought.
Which has definitely happened in our party. And we have a character in our party who loves to make bold, strong choices as soon as they interact with the character. And it always makes the roleplay fun because it can be polarizing.
I require one last thing. He points at Hondo.
Oh, I was worried about something.
He says, I want his hat. Kind of looks at Hondo expectantly.
That's not what we
Hondo.
Wait, which hat are we talking about here? Talking about Mary's hat or
No,
the captain hat?
Your captain's hat.
Your Commodore captain's hat.
Your fancy captain's hat.
Okay. What is the alternative? I'm sure we can come to an agreement here.
Hondo, we just negotiated. He could murder us all.
Hondo, it's time you declutter your shit.
Minimalist lifestyle, Hondo. Another great thing you do, Kyle, is, and speaking of making characters like more three-dimensional, it's that specificity when an NPC is interacting with you for a reason. It's not just Jack at the end of the bar who's like, hey, you guys having a great day? It's like Jack wandering over to you and is like, I've seen that symbol before. You're the Wildcards, eh? I heard about what you did back in Rogue Point. Sweet. Now you know for a reason you can RP with this person. You know about the history your party had at this place called Rogue Point. It's not just a like vacant NPC who there's really nothing behind the eyes going on.
Exactly. Like using your adventures are decked out in magic items. They are oftentimes connected with factions or guilds and will have symbols or whatever to connect them. Or to your point, the Wildcards are a name that is known in the world now. You guys have been a part of great, humongous things. You're 17th level now, like you're high level characters. People know who you are. You've become legendary, and therefore people have reason to approach. As a DM, that's just an easy in for any kind of RP interaction, whether it is just kind of a casual thing or whether it is an opportunity to provide some information, an opportunity to highlight those players who may otherwise struggle to kind of bring themselves to the forefront in an RP sense. This is an easy way to engage with them, put a little spotlight on them, and if they want to engage more, they have a super easy way to do it. And then from there, you can kind of align what that player's goals might be or the group's goals might be. And through that player who may otherwise struggle, you can give them that path very naturally into finding more information or providing the path forward for the party. And I believe that is like a huge boon to a player who otherwise struggles with RP, to give them that like little win of getting the party to the next thing or the next really useful piece of information.
I also think when they do get those moments, it's important to celebrate it at the table, you know, encourage your other players who have a really cool role play moment. Like let them know like, wow, that was a sick scene. That was really, really cool.
Absolutely.
Speaking in line with that, I was just thinking how the important thing is often a player might feel shy, or they might feel like I'm going to say the wrong thing and it's going to be embarrassing. I'm going to ask, I don't know what this person's talking about. And it's important to just make sure that everyone at the table feels safe. And then if they don't know, we say this a bunch in our game, you can just always ask the DM, and we'll do that a bunch of times. Life happens. It's not, it's fun to be in the character's head as if it's happening like second by second, but sometimes you just forget. I had a game recently where I forgot one of my siblings' names in game, and you're just like, what's that guy's name? And there's just absolutely nothing wrong with just asking the DM, hey, sorry to break this moment, but what the hell's my older brother's name? And then like, it's Rowan. Right, Rowan. Okay. And then boom, you're back in the moment. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not embarrassing at all. And making sure that people feel comfortable at the table asking those questions is paramount to fostering good role-play moments.
And realistically, from a DM's perspective, it's just a good moment to refresh the whole table of a particularly important piece of information, or to like remind you, like there's this NPC that you guys were planning to meet, you know, in one way or another, that you can just give everyone a quick reminder of like, oh yeah. We play once a week. Like if we're lucky, some people out there will only play once a month. There's no shot you're remembering all that information. And obviously this is the final kind of point to like, it's okay to just have regular conversations. We're not, we're putting on a show, but we're not professionals by any stretch. We're just playing. We're just kids. We're just doing our thing. And so should anyone out there be watching. It's just, you don't have to be on stage with hundreds of people watching. You're just playing with your friends.
We are open for professional contracts, though. If anyone wants to sponsor us, anyone wants to throw money at us, yeah, we would happy to be GoPro. But yeah, we're fine just playing for now. Last thing I'll say here is like a good button on this in our notes. It's don't be afraid of a no combat session for this. And as a DM, you might be worried, and it's important again to check in with the table and know what they find fun. But in our games, we've had no combat sessions that are exciting, super memorable, tense. That have just been so great. We've gone whole games without combat and never looked back on it like, oh, I really wish we started a fight. So make sure it could be like that for you at the table if your players like that too. But yeah, Kyle, what do you think? We've had some great ones like that.
We've had a lot of moments that we will highlight in scenarios that were just purely RP for 90%, if not the whole 100% of the episode for a couple of hours. But yeah, it's difficult from a DM perspective sometimes. You want to try and have the balance of the three pillars of role play, exploration, and combat. You want all three of those. In theory, that's what you want in every game. But not every game is built to do that. Like, it doesn't always work that way. And again, this, just one more time, comes from a game where we like RP as a pretty big proponent of that pillar. RP and combat are probably the top, with exploration kind of just in the lower third. So there are plenty of scenarios and plenty of our games where RP has been the one and only thing. And for some players like yourself, that is 100%, you're 100% on board. But for some players who don't particularly shine in an RP episode, that can be a challenge. And maybe not be as fun as some of the full combat ones. So that's why I think it's important that, one, we're checking in with everybody, make sure they're happy with that as part of the game. And two, to give the players who are a little shyer, little worried, a chance to shine in scenarios such as these. Some of the things we do very often is watch buddies. And when you wake up from a watch, who is it you wake up? Super simple.
It's easy. What pair in our party? We often have 6 players. So what 2 are taking watch first? Great. You guys talking about anything? I mean, often there's just really fun one-on-one character situations. So they're talking about something. And we've literally had, hey, like, you having a good day? I'm tired. Don't talk to me. It's like, no problem. Awkward silence follows. Like, totally fine.
They're just super fun little bite-sized moments. But have the potential for real conversations. Like in those moments when you maybe don't want to engage with the whole party, but something really important or really like dramatic has happened to one person in the party, and I come to you as the DM and I say, okay, your watch has come to its end. It's safe. Everything is fine. Who do you wake up? If you're wanting to explore something and you want to talk to another player and you think it could be interesting, because it will certainly be interesting, wake that person up. And they will surely have an interesting conversation, even if it is one of those like, fuck off, I don't want to talk about that. That's still interesting. That creates like an interesting character dynamic. That creates drama within the party. That creates the stakes that you're hoping to create out of the dramatic moments that they're reacting to.
I often think of this as someone who loves improv, loves role playing, that this is a fun way to bring in a character who might want to role play, but doesn't know how to start it, doesn't know how to do it. And you can bring them in and help guide that conversation and ask them questions and make them feel safe in that moment and allow them to explore a bit more. Because for newer characters, you're all just trying to get your reps in. You're trying to get used to your character, especially if you're just starting out at a lower level. And these are how you can find out, like, oh, this is how I live out as my character. This is how they feel. And yeah, just like you said, Kyle, we've had characters confess feelings for other characters. We've had characters confess deep-seated fears. It's been really fun and something we discovered like in the middle of our game that we've kind of just stuck with. What's the next one we got as another DM tip?
Another scenario to set up is where combat isn't even an option. It's not, well, I shouldn't say that. Combat's always an option.
It's always on the table.
You hope it doesn't devolve into it. Is something as simple as a dinner party. It can be a setup for something that is either a fun, like kind of lavish affair. It could be set up as a really tense, almost negotiation or feeling out the opposing party kind of a scenario. The build up to it in itself is a fun experience,
So
especially if it's a lavish kind of ball. There's like the build up to like, you know, what their outfits look like, and you know what you want to get prepared and set up with your characters for those who want to engage. I think that is super fun. And then the actual event, whatever it may be, is a plethora of opportunity.
Opportunities like one early on in our game was, hey, by the way, no weapons at this dinner party. It's a royal party, so you're coming to this, so no weapons. And guess what? A fight breaks out, a very important fight. So how your characters like walk through that. Another one is get more info on some of these NPCs, because one of them might be very, very shady. So now you got to have your characters kind of interacting and trying to get information and a read on these characters. Yeah, we've just had so much fun with a dinner party. A dinner party is always a good time to throw something in. What if you wanted to do more of a solo DM talking to the player and really like fostering that relationship? What's the scenario you'd go for?
I mean, if you can single someone out with a well-timed and purposeful dream or vision scenario, that is a great way to create role play and create a conversation and highlight one of these people who either loves role play and you're giving them just a scene that they can chew on, or you're highlighting someone who struggles otherwise, but now it's just one-on-one. Now it's a lot simpler. And the stakes in a dream and vision are far less, especially if you establish that it seems very obviously a dream or vision. And depending on the scenario, you can go 100 different ways with this. This could be a very ominous or foreboding dream or vision, a conversation where a villain of some kind is poking and prodding where they shouldn't be. That is incredibly interesting, but it could also be a boon. It could be providing information through some deity or some connection in other ways that is granting you this moment to see something and highlight a character who maybe struggles. Gord. In your mind, you hear Orcus's voice return.
About time. It took you long enough. It's time to enter the party properly. And I see you've brought dinner. Gord Dunsworth, it is time you break those final shackles. Kill the Wildcards.
And we're going to end there.
And these are where those bite-sized descriptions come in that Kyle was mentioning. You're going to slowly unveil the dream and then ask them, what do you do? Do you do anything? And if they say nothing, that's no problem. You can keep it going. But then you might want some sort of pivotal moment at the end of that dream. And it could just be as simple as they stare at you expectantly. Are you going to do this or are you going to do this? And then just boom, if they make a choice, great. And then you can have this go on from there. And then they feel like they had this role play moment with a spotlight centered on them that wasn't too scary, and their character may have evolved or continued to move along their arc, which is really nice.
Yeah, simple choices being offered up. Not making especially someone who struggles in RP, not making them dig for it. Make it little softballs, little softball questions,
Exactly.
Little softball options for them to bite into, or choose from. That they can either have a more lengthy description of what it is they're doing, or they can just simply say, "I'm going to go this way," and that's all they need to do.
It's kind of those closed-ended questions. With someone who's more shy, maybe a little more timid, if you just make it a yes or no or an A or a B, it's the open-ended ones where people can feel on the spot and get a little flustered. So just try and avoid those a bit. Kyle, we just had one of these in our game, which is always really fun and, again, very tense. And that is a classic like war council, planning a fight, planning the next game style moment. And those are another great scenarios for role play.
Similar to the dinner party, in like kind of the build up to it is equally important in establishing the tone of what it is you're about to go into, establishing what information the party previously has kind of before they even get there, making sure everyone's on the same page. So you lean either a little bit on your higher peer, your theater kid, to kind of lead the way, to talk it out. But once you get into it, very often it's going to be that kind of tense, almost negotiation or this explanation of planning. But it very much comes down to putting forth the information that your party has and suggestions, and kind of a back and forth with the NPC in the room and multiple NPCs. We've had a couple where in both dinner parties and in kind of war council moments, you have multiple NPCs in the room, so you can pull for different people. Different party members may have different connections with different NPCs, and it gives you, as the DM, tools to either call on certain people through different voices, and to share different perspectives and different pieces of information, but ultimately giving the players an opportunity to shine and put forth their kind of ideas in almost like an open, free opportunity to just like spitball ideas as we're going towards, in this case, the war council, as we're leading towards war. What information have you got? How can we prepare?
Yeah, you can ask the king can ask the quiet wizard, what plans do you have to aid the arcane casters in our city? Or like, what can we rely on you for this magic? And this is cool, Kyle, because you do a great job of this too, where these NPCs can now introduce for that big moment, these big fights, these like A, B, C, and D plots, these little things that are happening where an NPC says, oh, I'm worried about the prince. They're such a showboat. I'm really worried they're going to try and overextend themselves and make like a crazy last stand. And then you can just have these things running through characters. These side character conversations can happen. It's a great opportunity for role play. Our last one, our favorite one in our campaign, is celebrate a holiday. Kyle, would you tell them all about Deep Winter's Day?
We have Deep Winter's Day. It's episode 60 on our channel here on the Wildcards, and it was Secret Bard, or a Secret Santa in not D&D world, and it was just highlighting the Winter's Crest style festival, the winter solstice, and it was Christmas for D&D, and it was super lovely, and it was a super fun idea that I don't think I necessarily put forth. I think it was Kevin or yourself, or maybe, I don't remember. It just kind of collaboratively.
We just stumbled into this, yeah. Whether Leah made a joke, and then our party member Hondo, Kevin, named it Secret Bard because we were trying to think of Secret Santa, which basically Kyle's about to explain, but we just literally did send Kyle basically divvied up through names just like a Secret Santa. Hey, Valentine, you are buying for this party member. Hondo, you are buying for this party member. And then we did a reveal of gifts, and they were all tailored to the characters, and it was lovely.
Super simple from my perspective, because the thing I love most about it was I didn't set it. You guys decided, and then in the moment we ran with it all together. We were lucky enough that it was easy, that we had 6 party members, so it was just on your turn you roll a d6, and I had a Lavender 1, 2, 3, 4, like whose name was what number. We just rolled randomly for it. I messaged everyone privately. This is who you're going to buy a gift for, or make a gift for, and then it was multiple sessions after that point. From this was decision.
We made this decision to like start a Secret Bard, and then we did one of our more terrifying arcs. Like, I don't even know, 7 episodes. Will we live through this? So yeah, it was a lot of tension, and then the payoff was wonderful.
Yeah, a harrowing adventure. We come home, and what had kind of happened in the game, but it's kind of besides the point. But the holiday had more or less passed. Like Deep Winter's Day had passed while you guys were adventuring, but the spirit of the idea still lived, and you guys were just like, no, we're still going to do it. And so you guys got home, and everyone finished their final preparations, and basically the whole episode was kind of returning home after the harrowing adventure, settling in to your home, and then going through one by one and describing what items or gift you had bought or created. And it was just super wholesome, gave everyone a chance to think about something, and everyone did a really good job of thinking about something that was like tailor-made to the character that they had drawn. And it was just super wholesome. That's the best I could say about it.
Lavender walks up to the tree and takes out this like book-looking wrapped package, and it's like wrapped in twine, but it's got like a little spring of like evergreen on it, very like handmade wrapping and everything. This isn't fancy or anything like that. And then she hands it to Gord and gives him a little pat and says, "Happy Secret Bard, Gord."
This is another good example of if you know you have a player who wants to role play more, but they are nervous about being put on the spot, this is a way that they can prepare. They could literally write down the description of the gift they want to give another player and then feel totally comfortable saying exactly what they wanted to describe this meaningful gift so wonderfully and present it to the other player and not worry about, oh, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to stammer over my words? It's one of our favorite. We've played 120 games now, 130, can't even keep track. And that's like one of my favorite episodes that we've ever played. It was so fun.
Actually, that does not necessarily related to this point, but just another point for DMs out there to kind of keep tucked away. If you can give your players a chance to prepare for a social engagement, prepare for a social thing where they know they're going to meet with a war council, they're going to meet with the king, the queen, they're going to have a social kind of sit down, almost, the Critical Role, there's a moment where they engage with a big bad kind of element in the world, and it's a whole sit down moment where they're at a table and they can have a discussion, and it's a very dramatic moment, but they are given the chance to kind of build up to it and prepare what they want to say, especially for the players who struggle with these RP moments. Giving them the chance to prepare ahead of time is going to give them just a little element of like confidence.
Love it. If you want to see that Secret Bard thing, again, Kyle said it, it's episode 60. It's called Deep Winters Day on our channel. The whole thing is just pure wholesome content. We throw in some holiday music. It's lovely. Our final thoughts here, we said it right off the top, and the most important thing is check in with your players. Kyle, as a DM, what do you say to your players when you're checking in?
You want to check in with your players consistently in-game and out of game. In-game, just quickly giving little spotlights, little tidbits to the players who struggle, and certainly, raising up the players who really shine in an RP spotlight. And out of game, making sure that everyone is on the same page with the trajectory of the game, the pillars, as we talked about, role play, combat, and exploration. Make sure everyone is happy that, in this case, maybe role play is a little higher than some other games. Make sure everyone is on the same page.
And then with the role play, give some rewards along with it. I think you do a masterful job of that, whether it's information on allies, inspiration, or even hell, just compliments from NPCs. That's just always nice to have. And then lastly, just takes practice, Kyle. We said it again. We started fresh. It just takes reps and practice.
It can take a lot of time, especially from a DM perspective. It can take a lot of time to try and find your voice because you have so many. That can be a real struggle, especially from a DM side, if you're not particularly great at the RP element of the game. It can take a significant amount of time. You're not going to come out of the gate and be Matt Mercer, and you shouldn't expect to be. No. You should find your own voice, find your own characters, even if you can only do one accent. If you can do no accents, that is totally fine. Just engage with your players. Make sure they're having a good time. You'll have a good time.
This is what I'll promise you. You're not going to be perfect. Players aren't going to be perfect, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be wild. And the messiness of D&D, that it's all alive, that it's all happening. That's why we play, because it's so enjoyable. This is it for this video. We got plenty more on the channel. We'll link them down below. Speaking of tips for role play, the dreams we mentioned before, we got a whole video on dreams, visions, and cutscenes. But Kyle, for our current game going, the Wildcards, where can they check that out?
You can check us out right here. Every Tuesday, we have a new episode out. And if you prefer to just listen, we are a podcast as well. And you can check us out wherever you get your podcasts.
If you want more videos like this, we got more coming up. We got alternative goals in combat. We got joining a party late, a D&D game late. How do you join that when it's already on the rails going in? But that's all for this video. If you had any other questions or comments, anything that worked for you for bringing someone into roleplay who really wants to, we would love to hear about it. All you have to do is write down there in the comments below. For Kyle and I, and for Hexplorers, thanks for watching and keep exploring.